Hey family, this is day 69 of our Reading Through the Bible Together in a Year series. Today we begin a new book, Judges, or in the Hebrew it's Shofetim. Shofet meaning judge, and im being the plural, as we've talked about before. But Shofetim, judges. Now, before we get into that a little bit, we're starting with chapters 1 through 3, but I want to let you know that when we, in our society, think of judge or judges, we think of somebody who makes civil court decisions about right and wrong and criminals and victims and all that. Justice, right? Justice is a big part of it. And that's there in the biblical term shofetim. That's definitely a part of it. But the judges of Israel, especially in the book of Judges, they were more than just people who made civil court case distinctions and things like that. They did that too. However, they were more just like rulers and warrior type leaders. And so what we're going to see in the book of Judges over and over again is that Israel's going to do something bad. They're going to be sold into the hands of their enemies, and then they're going to cry out, and God's going to raise up a judge to go and save them. And a lot of the time, that when that judge goes to save them, it involves being a leader of fighters or some warrior type person. And so keep that in mind as we say the term judge over and over again, and he was a judge of Israel, and she was a judge of Israel, that it's not just a decision and discernment making person. It's a like warrior type chief leader. So keep that in mind. But we're starting with chapters 1 through 3 today. So let's see how it goes. After the death of Yehoshua, the children of Israel asked of Yahweh, saying, "Who should go up for us first against the Canaanites, to fight against them?" Yahweh said, "Yehudah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand." Yehudah said to Shimon, his brother, "Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with you into your lot." So Shimon went with him. Yehudah went up, and Yahweh delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. They struck 10,000 men in Betzek. They fought Adoni-Betzek in Betzek, and they fought against him. They struck the Canaanites and the Perizzites, but Adoni-Betzek fled. They pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. Adoni-Betzek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their big toes cut off, scavenged under my table. As I have done, so God has done to me. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The children of Yehudah fought against Jerusalem, took it, struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. After that, the children of Yehudah went down to fight against the Canaanites, who lived in the hill country, and in the south, and in the lowland. Yehudah went against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron. The name of Hebron before that was Kiriath Arba. They struck Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there he went against the inhabitants of Devir. The name of Devir before that was Kiriath Sefer. Caleb said, "I will give Achsah, my daughter, as a wife to the man who strikes Kiriath Sefer and takes it." Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it, so he gave him Achsah, his daughter, as a wife. When she came, she got him to ask her father for a field. She got off her donkey, and Caleb said to her, "What would you like?" She said to him, "Give me a blessing, because you have set me in the land of the south. Give me also springs of water." Then Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. The children of the Kenite, Moshe's brother-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Yehudah into the wilderness of Yehudah, which is in the south of Arad. And they went and lived with the people. Yehudah went with Shimon his brother, and they struck the Canaanites who inhabited Sephat, and utterly destroyed it. The name of that city was also called Hormah. Also Yehudah took Gaza with its border, and Ashkelon with its border, and Ekron with its border. Yahweh was with Yehudah and drove out the inhabitants of the hill country, for he could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. They gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moshe had said, and he drove the 3 sons of Anak out of there. The children of Benjamin didn't drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Yosef also went up against Bethel, and Yahweh was with them. The house of Yosef sent to spy out Bethel. The name of the city before that was Luz. The watchers saw a man come out of the city, and they said to him, "Please show us the entrance into the city, and we will deal kindly with you." He showed them the entrance into the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go. The man went into the land of the Hittites, built a city, and called its name Luz, which is its name to this day. Manasseh didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shean and its towns, nor Ta'anak and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Yivlam and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns. But the Canaanites would dwell in that land. When Yisrael had grown strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor and didn't utterly drive them out. Ephraim didn't drive out the Canaanites who lived in Getzer, but the Canaanites lived in Getzer among them. Zebulun didn't drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahalol, but the Canaanites lived among them and became subject to forced labor. Asher didn't drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor the inhabitants of Sidon, nor Achlav, nor Achziv, nor of Chelva, nor of Athek, nor of Rachov, but the Asherites lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they didn't drive them out. Naphtali didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beit Shemesh, nor the inhabitants of Beit Anat, but he lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beit Shemesh and of Beit Anat became subject to forced labor. The Amorites forced the children of Dan into the hill country, for they would not allow them to come down to the valley. But the Amorites would dwell in Mount Heres, in Ayalon, and in Sha'albim. Yet the hand of the house of Yosef prevailed, so that they became subject to forced labor. The border of the Amorites was from the ascent of Achravim, from the rock and upward. Yahweh's angel came up from Gilgal to Bochim. He said, I brought you out of Egypt and have brought you to the land which I swore to give your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you. You shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. But you have not listened to my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall be in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. When Yahweh's angel spoke these words to all the children of Israel, the people lifted up their voice and wept. They called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there to Yahweh. Now when Yehoshua had sent the people away, the children of Israel each went to his inheritance to possess that land. The people served Yahweh all the days of Yehoshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Yehoshua, who had seen all the great work of Yahweh that he had worked for Yisrael. Yehoshua the son of Nun, the servant of Yahweh, died, being 110 years old. They buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, on the north of the mountain of Gaash. After all that generation were gathered to their fathers, another generation arose after them who didn't know Yahweh, nor the work which he had done for Yisrael. The children of Yisrael did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and served the Baals. They abandoned Yahweh, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people who were around them, and bowed themselves down to them, and they provoked Yahweh to anger. They abandoned Yahweh and served Baal and the Ashtaroth. Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Wherever they went out, Yahweh's hand was against them for evil, as Yahweh had spoken, and as Yahweh had sworn to them, and they were very distressed. Yahweh raised up judges who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Yet they didn't listen to their judges, for they prostituted themselves to other gods, and bowed themselves down to them. They quickly turned away from the way in which their fathers walked, obeying Yahweh's commandments. They didn't do so. When Yahweh raised up judges for them, then Yahweh was with the judge, and saved them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it grieved Yahweh because of their groaning by reason of those who oppressed them and troubled them. But when the judge was dead, they turned back, and dealt more corruptly than their fathers in following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They didn't cease what they were doing, or give up their stubborn ways. Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he said, Because this nation transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers, and has not listened to my voice, I also will no longer drive out any of the nations that Yehoshua left when he died from before them, that by them I may test Israel, to see if they will keep Yahweh's way to walk therein, as their fathers kept it or not. So Yahweh left those nations without driving them out hastily. He didn't deliver them into Yehoshua's hand. Now these are the nations which Yahweh left to test Israel by them, even as many as had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at least those who knew nothing of it before. The 5 lords of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. They were left to test Israel by them, to know whether they would listen to Yahweh's commandments, which he commanded their fathers by Moshe. The children of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. They took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. The children of Israel did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and forgot Yahweh their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. Therefore Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years. When the children of Israel cried to Yahweh, Yahweh raised up a savior to the children of Israel, who saved them. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Yahweh's spirit came on him, and he judged Israel, and he went out to war, and Yahweh delivered Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. His hand prevailed against Cushan Rishathaim. The land had rest for 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. The children of Israel again did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and Yahweh strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. He gathered the children of Ammon and Amalek to himself, and he went and struck Israel, and they possessed the city of palm trees. The children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried to Yahweh, Yahweh raised up a savior for them, Ehud, the son of Gerah, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. The children of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon, the king of Moab. Ehud made himself a sword which had 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he wore it under his clothing on his right thigh. He offered the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When Ehud had finished offering the tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the stone idols that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. The king said, Keep silence. All who stood by him left him. Ehud came to him, and he was sitting by himself alone in the cool upper room. Ehud said, I have a message from God to you. He arose out of his seat. Ehud put out his left hand and took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into his body. The handle also went in after the blade, and the fat closed on the blade, for he didn't draw the sword out of his body, and it came out behind. Then Ehud went out onto the porch and shut the doors of the upper room on him and locked them. After he had gone, his servants came and saw that the doors of the upper room were locked. They said, Surely he is covering his feet in the upper room. They waited until they were ashamed, and behold, he didn't open the doors of the upper room. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and behold, their lord had fallen down dead on the floor. Ehud escaped while they waited, passed beyond the stone idols, and escaped to Seirah. When he had come, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he led them. He said to them, Follow me, for Yahweh has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. They followed him and took the fords of the Yarden against the Moabites, and didn't allow any man to pass over. They struck at that time about 10,000 men of Moab, every strong man and every man of valor. No man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel. Then the land had rest 80 years. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who struck 600 men of the Philistines with an ox goad. He also saved Israel. All right, so now we're getting into it. Israel has, there's a little bit of recounting at the beginning of the book of Judges, and Joshua is still alive at this point, and they're kind of talking about the different tribes of Israel going in and conquering different nations and taking their inheritance. But one of the things it points out to us in chapter 1 is that like the Benjaminites and the Ephraimites and Zebulun and Naphtali and like some of these tribes weren't driving out all of the Canaanites that lived in the land already like they were supposed to. And God warned them, like, drive out all that are in the land because I don't want their God worship and their practices to become a snare to you. But that's exactly what we're going to see happen. And even here, after Joshua dies, it's almost immediately that the people start turning away from Yahweh and serving the other gods or the Baals, which really just means lords. So that's like a wide stretch of term, but the Baals. And so already, God said if you turn away from me, then I'm not going to fight for you. And then God doesn't do any of the destroying, but he just keeps selling them into the hands of people. And so we're going to see how that goes more and more. But the story about Ehud is pretty funny because it's all about this guy who he's left-handed, and so secretly he takes the knife and he stabs the big fat king, and the fat goes around him. I don't know. We're not supposed to see these judges as role models and holy men of God. You know, they're not a Moses, which Moses wasn't really completely a holy man of God either, right? Because he was a murderer and he did bad things too. But like, we're not supposed to see them as pure people. And so it seems they're starting to get worse. Like Othniel, not too bad. He just like violently rebels against the people and saves Israel. And then Ehud is like this sneaky, crafty dude, and he like assassinates this king, and then they're able to do things. And so it's like going to slowly start to get worse. But it's pretty fun. So we'll keep going after today, and I'll see you tomorrow. But I hope that today you have a wonderful day.